Hi, everybody, and welcome to Project 180. My name is Kevin McGowan. Today I'm speaking with Niousha Ghazni. She is, well, I'll let her explain exactly what her role is, but she works with Emergent Biosolutions, and she's been a manager and project manager for a long time in the marketing space, I believe, in that company. Is that correct, Niousha?
Yeah, currently I'm the marketing director at Emergent Biosolutions Canada.
And how long have you been with Emergent?
So I've been in this role now just over 3.5 years. I joined right when the pandemic hit, and I currently manage all the marketing functions for Canada. I oversee a team of two. I got to tell you though, in this role, I wear multiple hats, some of which include working within policy or government or e-commerce or businesses. So it's been quite rewarding.
Well, that's amazing, and a really interesting time to start a role when like that whole global crisis was kind of happening. So I'm assuming that you kind of pivoted from that office environment to more online environment around the same time, like a lot of us did.
I did. It was very interesting because I had previously worked at Johnson & Johnson and we were all in office. So being hired into a new company virtually and then spending the first few years working virtually at that company was very interesting.
And that's really interesting because of lots and lots of reasons, but more specifically about managing a team like that. You say you have a management, you have two direct reports, but there's a larger team that you're working with, obviously, and lots of different projects that you would be juggling at the same time. So I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit about how you approached that as a leader, as a new leader in this new job in this new place in a completely new and maybe slightly panicked, from my own experience, environment. What was that like for you as a leader coming into this new job?
I can tell you, I mean, it's been extremely rewarding. This role I'm currently in has been the most challenging, but it's been the most enjoyable, the most pleasant that I've been in. And it's because of the dynamic nature of the role. So working with coming into this role, working virtually and having to constantly adapt and adjust has put a new spin to leadership. And it makes you realize that you have to be quite flexible in how you deal with your company and with your people and how you lead.
Yeah. So what maybe was an older paradigm, and I don't mean to pick on Johnson Johnson in particular, because that was pre-COVID, so it was a very different environment. But how has your leadership style maybe evolved because of that online life that you're now living with the pandemic?
I would say a bit more transformational. So I found myself becoming more outside of the box thinking in terms of how I led my team and how I interacted with them just by nature of COVID and us working from home. My mindset shift to how do I transform my team to be able to think beyond what is normally acceptable? So for example, how are we interacting so that we're still getting the same work done and our projects are moving forward and that we're getting our product where it's needed, but at the same time maintaining that same level of engagement. So there was a lot of transformational and I would say innovative moments with my leadership style and with my team where it was like, I didn't think we could do this before, but we can, and this is how we did it.
Well, maybe can you offer an example? Like obviously, I'm assuming there's lots of projects that you're likely juggling. Is there one that maybe stands out as, okay, I was worried about this one, but we kind of pulled through, and how'd you manage it?
I would say the biggest is just engagement with customers to keep momentum going. I'm thinking of a very specific example of something we were trying to implement in pharmacy and we didn't think we could in a virtual environment. And we had a very aspirational goal of what we were trying to do with pharmacists to get more product out. And you have to keep in mind in the time of COVID, pharmacists were heavily focused on addressing the most ad-need patients first. And so our product, which was also dispensed in pharmacy, was not top of mind. And so my team and I thought about, okay, what do we want our end goal to be? And we realized it was quite aspirational and maybe out of reach. And then we started breaking it down into smaller steps, like how could we actually do that? If this was to work, how would we go about doing it? And simply through the line of questioning of how and why, we got to a point where we were able to come up with a plan to be able to address what we needed to do in pharmacy. And it was quite transformational because we had started this idea months ago, thinking that this would be impossible. And somehow we managed to find a way to get into pharmacy, get our product out in light of COVID and all the restrictions that were put in place.
It's amazing. It's you put a project management lingo, maybe, shove some in there, but I think it sounds like you took a traditional agile approach in terms of, okay, let's set some smaller goals. Let's get the first one done. And then it's kind of iterating and figuring out the path one step at a time, as opposed to scoping out this whole, campaign or whole project for, that would be months and months of work. You broke it into these smaller pieces.
I love how you frame that, because that is exactly how it was. And I find more of what we do in the industry as a whole is moving in that direction, because you don't necessarily know what the end goal looks like. And there might be multiple paths to get there. So you just break it up into small steps and achieve smaller milestones till you get there.
Yeah. Interesting too about, I mean, we can all reflect on our own experiences with the early days of COVID, especially, but how do you handle, or how did you handle, or how would you handle a team that's obviously trying to get a job done, but also, facing something like that? I mean, everybody can have, personal issues that maybe take their focus away from their job or, whatever, but that was something that was affecting everybody simultaneously. As a leader, how did you approach that more human side of things too, in addition to the work side?
It's a really good question, and I think first and foremost, it's being open and honest. So being able to be open and honest with yourself, but also showing that authentic self with your team, because we were going through a vulnerable time, and there were a lot of unknowns. And so one of the mantras I adopted during that time was, if I had information I could share with my team, I did. And if I didn't have information or I didn't know, I actually let them know that. I didn't try to come off as somebody who knew all the answers. And also, if I had information but I couldn't share, I was also honest about that too. I let them know. And we also allowed, as a team, an open space to be able to vent our frustrations, talk about what was going on. It was a no judgment zone. We gave ourselves the time to go through that, myself included. And then we move forward past that. So I believe in being able to have open and honest communication, venting frustrations, talking about the current state of affairs. But then let's get back to what needs to happen, what works for us, and how are we going to move forward. And then a big part of my role as a leader in that moment was listening to what my team was actually saying. So, I mean, we always throw around this word around active listening, which is great, but really oh, sorry, Kevin.
No, I was just saying, yep, I agree. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Not a problem. But what does active listening mean? So it's trying to understand what your team is saying in between the lines of what they're actually talking about, but also confirming. So if your team is coming to you and speaking, go back to them and say, this is what I heard you said. Is this what you actually mean by saying that? And there was a lot of moments during the pandemic and during everything that was going on where we would just check in on each other. So I would put in very frequent "Are you okay?" calls, or "How are you doing right now?" I like to frame the check-in around that specific moment, not specifically "How are you doing?" but in this moment today, how are you doing? And that I found that really helped.
Well, I think that demonstrates a high level of emotional intelligence, which is a massive, element of leadership that I think wasn't necessarily part of the leadership textbooks for many years, even generations. I think that's almost a new idea for a lot of people. Is that something you managed to kind of come to naturally, or was that something you had to work on?
I think with respect to emotional intelligence, it was something that was always there. It just went into full drive. So my number one rule when it comes to my team is look after your people. And I say this because I've talked to a lot of coaches, I've done a lot of reading, and I've realized that employees, individuals stay motivated when they have three elements. One is passion, one is purpose, and one is where they feel value. The passion part, that's really intrinsic, so that comes from within. The purpose comes from the company and whether you feel aligned to that. The feeling valued, though, that comes from me, and that comes from your leader, because I can have an input there and I can influence how you feel valued. And how you feel valued is through your emotional intelligence. And I know everyone, we talk about emotional intelligence, probably not just in pharma, but in every industry. But it's really, how do you use your ability and your awareness of the emotions of your person, yourself, to manage behavior in relationship with others? And I find that's very, very important. It's not easy, but it can be done. And I would say it's a new brain muscle you have to use to kind of shift yourself from a very logical thinking, straightforward, that makes sense kind of rationale, to more of a, how is my team feeling? How is that person feeling? And how could that be affecting their work and what they're going through?
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're sharing, because I've had many bosses over the years. Some were very good at that naturally, and some were not. Right. So in terms of feeling valued in your job, I also like the three elements of kind of satisfaction. And I mean, it applies to life, not just your job, I think, really, but feeling valued, that people around you are appreciative of you, not just as a cog in that wheel, but as a person. I think that's I mean, it's critical for the team to feel good about what they're doing and then be successful.
Yes, absolutely.
In terms of unpredictability, I mean, not just kind of leave COVID, but just in terms of general unpredictability in any job. Like, I've had many myself, and you're working on 5 projects, and then all of a sudden the missile comes, right? It's like, boom, now this is your priority. Now this is how you have to, this is the thing you need to work on for the next 6 months or whatever. How do you manage the team through scenarios like that, when there's just unexpected projects or something didn't go the way it was supposed to? How do you kind of work with your team to work through things like that?
It's a really good question, and I've been having a lot of debates about this with various people. I'll tell you my personal opinion on this. And random sidetracking projects come up all the time. Life throws you curveballs, and I firmly believe that in those situations you need to lead with warmth rather than competence. So rather than get into, I know how to do this, let's get this done, we have the skill sets. I believe that in those moments is where you show up as a person, and you lead with the, I care about you, and let's figure out how this will affect your workload, how you're currently doing things, and how can we be able to modify or adjust to that, rather than you have the skill sets and I'm just going to put this on you because I know you're going to get it done. And it's interesting because I recently came across this Harvard Business Review article that actually speaks to that as a leader, you're much more effective if you lead with warmth, trust, and connection. And you have a bigger level of influence, leadership, respect, and engagement, rather than leading with strength and confidence. Because if you lead with strength and confidence and, hey, you have the skill sets, you know how to do this, get it done, it tends to lead into resentment, fear, envy, and dissonance. And I would encourage anyone to be able to look at those situations, step back, and over-index on your people, because it's the softer leadership, it's the warmth that gets more results than the you need to get this done approach.
I'm almost agog, because I I have flashbacks, like so many of us, I'm sure, have some level of PTSD from bad bosses or bad scenarios like that, where it's, no, this thing just showed up, well, now you got 3 times as much to do, just get it done. And the stress involved with that, the anxiety involved with that. There's only so much work anybody can do in a given day or week. So yeah, to hear that that's your approach is frankly very refreshing, and I'm deeply appreciative of it. And I don't even work with you, so I think it's a wonderful thing.
Well, I mean, we did slightly work together, and I really enjoyed that, and I think I saw some of that in you, which is why I probably connected with that.
I think so. I think I've tried. I mean, nobody on my team is here to contradict me, but I've always tried to be like an empathetic leader. That's where I lead from. Because the work is great. Very seldom though are you in a situation where somebody's going to be, like hospitalized or something because, or need days off because they're the work isn't quite done on Friday and it's kicked till Tuesday. Like generally, there's not a lot of fallout for something like that, where the human fallout can be significant. So I've always tried to balance that out as best I could, but generally, yes, leaning towards the people rather than the project itself. I mean, that might not sound good to some, but that's kind of how I like to approach it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. Generally, it's we hire competent people. People want to do good work. They know how to do it. The element that's always the variable is how do you relate to them as a person and how do you keep them motivated? And that's where I like to double down on.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna ask you one more question. Kind
Sure.
of wrap this into like it's a very cliched question, but like that new project manager, that new people manager, somebody who's just starting to, okay, I've just been given this elevated level of responsibility over, the work and the lives of 5, 6, 10 people, whatever it might be. How would you suggest that person start? Because you've been doing this a while, you've seen a lot of different teams, you've seen a lot of different projects, different companies, but somebody who's just in school and trying to break into this,
Yeah,
how would they start? What's the first couple of skills they should really focus on?
it's a really good question. And in my experience, I would say take a moment to pause and learn. So recognize that whatever environment, whatever new project, whatever new team that you might be getting into probably knows what they're doing. And so take a moment and truly understand what's going on, learn the business, learn the people, get connected with your team, understand what's going on, and then see where you can provide value. And you don't need to provide immediate results right away. People get that. People get that if you're new to a role, a team, an industry, a project, that you're not going to know everything right from the get-go. And people are compassionate and understanding of that. So take that time, because I always say that time is a gift, especially during those first 60, 90 days that you're not going to get ever again, because there's going to be expectations of you. So take that time, pause, and learn.
And that's amazing, wonderful advice. And then maybe we can wrap it there. I think we could probably talk all day, but I'll stop it for now.
Thanks,
but I want to say
Kevin.
thank you so much. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's been lovely.
You as well. Thank you.